They say technology connects us, but sometimes it reveals us. Michael Chen had been driving strangers through city streets for 3 years, invisible behind the wheel, forgotten the moment they closed his car door. He preferred it that way. Anonymity was safety. But on November 17th at 9:47 p.m., a single notification would shatter that carefully constructed distance. Within 2 hours, 3 lives would collide in ways none of them could predict. One would be saved, one would be ruined, and one would discover that the line between hero and villain is thinner than the screen of a smartphone.
Quick pause. Before we continue, tell us, where in the world are you watching from? If you're enjoying these stories, make sure to hit subscribe, because tomorrow's episode is absolutely mind-blowing.
Michael Chen checked his phone for the 14th time in 20 minutes. The rain hammered against the windshield of his aging Honda Accord, turning downtown Seattle into a watercolor painting of blurred neon and asphalt. Tuesday nights were usually slow, but the weather should have driven more people into his car. Instead, he'd been parked outside the Westlake Center for nearly an hour, watching his acceptance rate drop with each ride he declined that would take him too far from the hospital. His mother had 3 more months, the doctors said, maybe 4 if the treatment worked. The experimental therapy wasn't covered by Medicare, and the GoFundMe he'd started had barely raised $8,000. He needed $50,000. $50,000 that might as well have been $50 million. The phone buzzed. Finally, a ride request. Michael accepted it automatically, then glanced at the pickup location. The Grind, a coffee shop 2 blocks away. Drop off at Riverside Apartments 15 minutes south. Perfect. Short enough to get back to his zone, long enough to make the trip worthwhile. He pulled into traffic, windshield wipers beating a rhythm that matched his tired heartbeat. At 41, Michael had become a collection of routines and responsibilities. Wake at 6, check on mom, drive until 2 a.m., sleep 4 hours, repeat. His ex-wife used to say he was running from something. Turned out he was just running towards something that kept moving further away. The Grind's windows glowed warm against the November darkness. Michael pulled to the curb, hazards blinking. Inside, he could see the usual crowd, laptop warriors and first-date couples, everyone trying to be somewhere they weren't. His passenger wasn't waiting outside, so Michael did what he always did, waited. His phone was dying, down to 17%. He should have charged it, but the car charger had broken last week and a new one wasn't in the budget. Everything came down to budget now. Every dollar was already spoken for, assigned to some bill or medication or meal that his mother could barely eat. Michael pulled up his banking app out of habit, a form of self-torture he'd developed over the past year. Checking account, $847.32. Savings account, $43,205.67. He'd been so proud of that savings account. 8 years of overnight shifts, skipped meals, a second job on weekends. Every dollar painstakingly added, never touched. It was supposed to be for a down payment on a house, back when he was married, back when the future looked different. Now it was for time, buying his mother 3 more months, maybe 4. Worth every penny. He was about to put the phone down when a notification banner dropped from the top of the screen. Alert, large transaction processed on your account. Wells Fargo checking, minus $50,000. Current balance, minus $49,152.68. Michael's vision tunneled. The words didn't make sense, couldn't make sense. He refreshed the app. The screen loaded slowly, agonizingly, and then there it was, a transaction list that made his stomach drop. 8:47 p.m., transfer to account 43847, $43,276.67. 8:48 p.m., overdraft fee, $35. 8:49 p.m., cash advance, $6,829.33. 8:49 p.m., cash advance fee, $150. His savings was gone, completely emptied, and someone had tried to take even more, overdrafting his checking account in the process. Michael's hands shook as he called the bank's fraud line. The automated system walked him through security questions with maddening calm.
Yes, he was calling about suspicious activity. No, he did not authorize these transactions. Yes, he would hold. The hold music was Mozart. Michael had never hated Mozart before. A tap on the passenger window made him jump. A young man stood in the rain, hood pulled up, gesturing to be let in. David Park, according to the app. Michael's passenger. Michael unlocked the doors. He needed to cancel this ride, call the bank back, figure out what was happening. But the young man was already sliding into the back seat, shaking water from his jacket. "Thanks for waiting," David said. His voice carried an edge of breathlessness, urgency poorly masked. "Riverside Apartments, right? Building C if you can get close?" "Actually, I need to—" "It's kind of an emergency," David interrupted. His reflection in the rearview mirror showed a thin face, maybe mid-20s with dark circles under his eyes. "I really need to get there as fast as possible." Michael hesitated. He could see his acceptance rating dropping if he canceled. Another cancellation might get him deactivated, and he couldn't afford that. Not now. Not when his savings was gone, and he needed every fare. Fine. He pulled into traffic harder than necessary. 15 minutes. The whole music in his ear suddenly cut off. "Thank you for holding. This is Brandon with Wells Fargo Fraud Prevention. I see you're calling about suspicious activity." "Yes," Michael said, switching the call to speaker. He didn't care if his passenger heard it. "Someone just emptied my savings account. $50,000. I didn't authorize any of it." "I understand your concern, sir. Let me pull up your account. Can you confirm the last 4 digits of your social security number?" Michael rattled off the numbers, watching the road through vision that kept blurring. 8 years. Gone. His mother's treatment. Gone. "Okay, Mr. Chen, I'm showing the transactions you mentioned. The transfer was initiated at 8:47 p.m. from IP address 47123451189. Does that sound familiar?" "No, I don't know what that means." "It's the internet address where the transaction originated. According to our records, it came from a location in downtown Seattle. Specifically, it was processed through the Wi-Fi network at a business called The Grind." Michael's hands tightened on the steering wheel. The Grind, where he just picked up his passenger. "Wait," Michael said slowly. "What time did you say?" 8:47, sir. About an hour ago." An hour ago? Michael was sitting in The Grind. He'd stopped in to use the bathroom and grab a coffee, breaking his usual rule about spending money on anything that wasn't essential.
But it had been cold, and he'd been tired, and $5 seemed like a forgivable sin. He'd left his phone on the table, just for 2 minutes while he went to the bathroom. He always left it on the table. Who was going to steal a phone in a crowded coffee shop? "Sir, are you still there?" "I was there," Michael said. His voice sounded distant to his own ears. "At The Grind, an hour ago. I left my phone on a table. Did anyone have access to your device during that time?" Michael's eyes flicked to the rearview mirror. David was looking at his own phone, thumbs moving rapidly across the screen. In the glow of the device, Michael could see the kid's face more clearly. Young, desperate, familiar. He'd seen that face before. At The Grind. Sitting at the table next to his, laptop open, hoodie pulled up just like now. They'd made eye contact once, just a brief acknowledgement that 2 strangers were sharing space. Michael had gone to the bathroom. When he came back, the kid had been gone. "Mr. Chen, I need to know if anyone could have accessed your phone." In the back seat, David's phone buzzed. Michael watched in a mirror as the kid opened a banking app and smiled. A small, relieved smile that said everything. "I need to call you back," Michael said. "Sir, I strongly advise—" Michael ended the call. The rain seemed louder now, or maybe it was just the blood rushing in his ears. He had a choice to make, and he had about 10 minutes to make it. Michael's mind raced through possibilities like a computer running through code. He could confront David right now, in the car, but then what? The kid could lie, could run. Michael had no proof beyond circumstantial timing and his own gut feeling that twisted tighter with every second. He could call the police, but they'd need evidence, would need time, and meanwhile, his mother's treatment deadline was approaching like a freight train. Or he could drive to Riverside Apartments and see what David was really running toward. "Everything okay?" David asked from the back seat. His voice had a false casualness to it, the tone of someone trying very hard to sound unconcerned. "Fine," Michael said. He adjusted the rearview mirror slightly, wanting a better view. "Urgent night?" "Something like that." David's fingers were still dancing across his phone screen. "Just need to get home." Home. Right. Michael took a turn onto the arterial road that would lead them south. "Been a long day?" "You could say that." David finally looked up from his phone, meeting Michael's eyes in the mirror. For a moment, something passed between them. A flash of recognition. Maybe guilt, maybe nothing at all. "How about you? Busy night driving?" "Slow, actually. Was sitting at the grind for a while. Coffee shop downtown. You know it?" David's expression didn't change, but his hands stilled on his phone. "Can't say I do." "Liar." The word hung in the air between them, unspoken but loud. Michael's phone buzzed, a text from Wells Fargo. "We've temporarily frozen your account pending fraud investigation. Please call us back to complete the report." Frozen. His mother's medication refill was due tomorrow. The payment for her home care nurse was scheduled for Friday. Everything was automated. Everything depended on that account working. "Actually," Michael said, making a decision that felt like stepping off a cliff, "I need to make a quick stop before Riverside. Won't take long." David sat up straighter. "I really need to get home. Like, really need to get home." "5 minutes. There's a gas station coming up. I need to grab something." "Can't you do that after you drop me off?" "No," Michael said. There was steel in his voice now, the tone he'd used in his previous life when he was still a project manager at Microsoft, before the layoffs, before everything fell apart. "No, I can't." The gas station appeared on the right, an island of fluorescent light in the rain. Michael pulled in, but instead of parking at the pumps, he drove around to the back of the building, where the light was dimmer, where there were no cameras pointed at his car. "What are you doing?" David's voice had risen. "This isn't a stop. I'm getting out." David reached for the door handle. It didn't open. Michael had engaged the child lock system, something he'd installed after a drunk passenger tried to bail out on the highway once. "You can't keep me in here." David's voice had replaced the fear had replaced the false calm in his voice. "That's kidnapping. Did you steal my money?" Michael asked. He turned in his seat to face David directly. No more mirror, no more pretense. "Did you steal $50,000 from me?" David's face had gone pale. I don't know what you're talking about. Let me out of this car right now, or I'm calling the police." "Go ahead. Call them." Michael's voice was surprisingly steady. "Tell them that the man whose life savings you stole is refusing to drive you home. See what they say." I don't." David's hands were shaking now. "You're crazy. I'm just a passenger. I'm just trying to get home." "To Riverside Apartments, Building C. Interesting choice. You know what I was doing while I waited for you to come out of the grind? I was looking at my banking app, checking my savings for the thousandth time to make sure the money was still there. It was there when I accepted your ride. It was there when I drove the 2 blocks to pick you up. And then this notification came through. Large transaction. $50,000. Gone. From the grind's Wi-Fi network at exactly the time I was in the bathroom and you were sitting at the table next to mine." David stared at the phone like it was a snake. His mouth opened, closed, opened again. Lots of people were at the grind. But only one of them got into my car 15 minutes later. Only one of them is trying to get to Riverside Apartments like the building is on fire. Michael leaned forward. "What's at Riverside, David? What are you running toward with my money?" The silence stretched between them, broken only by the rain hammering on the roof. David's face cycled through emotions, fear, anger, calculation, and finally something that looked like despair. "You don't understand," David said quietly. "Then make me understand. You have 5 minutes before I call the police. Make me understand why you stole money that was supposed to keep my mother alive." David flinched at that. "My mother? Cancer. Experimental treatment. $50,000 that I've been saving for 8 years. Money that I chose not to spend on my wedding, on my honeymoon, on a house, on anything that normal people spend their money on because I knew she'd need it someday. That's what you took. That's what you..."
Michael's voice cracked. He hadn't let himself cry since the diagnosis. He wasn't going to start now. David's hands came up to his face. In the dim light from the gas station, Michael could see that the kid was shaking. "My wife," David said into his hands. "She's at Riverside. We got an eviction notice. 30 days. Today is day 30. The landlord is there right now. If I don't have the money, all of it, plus late fees in the next hour, we're out. All our stuff gets locked up. We lose everything." "So you decided to steal from someone else?"
"I didn't decide anything." David's voice rose. "I didn't wake up this morning thinking I'd become a thief. I woke up thinking I'd figure something out, like I have every day for 3 months since I lost my job, but nothing came through. No loans, no help from family, no miracles. And then I was sitting at that coffee shop because it's warm and they don't kick you out if you buy one coffee, and I saw you check your phone, saw the numbers on your banking app, saw you set it down and walk away. And you took your chance." "I took my wife's chance," David shouted. "She's 7 months pregnant. We have a daughter. She's 3 years old. She doesn't understand why we're packing everything into garbage bags. Where do I tell her we're going? A shelter? My car? It's 30 degrees at night." Michael felt something crack inside his chest. This wasn't how this was supposed to go. The thief was supposed to be evil, unrepentant, someone Michael could hate without reservation. But David was just scared, just desperate, just exactly where Michael would have been if his life had gone slightly differently. "You had your phone unlocked. Your banking app was open. I saw you had Face ID disabled, just a PIN code. I watched you type it in before you walked away. 4 digits, 0716. Your birthday? Your mom's? Doesn't matter. I did it without thinking. Transferred the max I could before the fraud alerts would trigger. Set up a cash advance for the rest. I figured you wouldn't notice for hours, maybe days. I'd have time to... I don't know what I thought. That somehow it would be okay? That I'd pay you back somehow? With what money? I don't know." His eyes were wet now. "I don't have a plan beyond the next hour. I just need my wife and daughter to have a roof tonight. That's all I can think about." Michael turned back around in his seat, staring at the rain streaming down the windshield. His mother needed treatment in 3 weeks. David's wife needed a home tonight. His daughter needed a warm place to sleep. There wasn't enough money to save everyone. There had never been enough money to save everyone. Michael Chen had been driving for 3 years, invisible and forgotten. But tonight, trapped in a car with the man who stole his dying mother's last chance, he realized something terrifying. He understood, and understanding might be the most dangerous thing of all.
Telling and preparing this story took us a lot of time. So if you're enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story.
"How much do you need?" Michael heard himself ask. The words came out before his brain could stop them. David's head snapped up. "What?" "For the eviction, the rent, late fees, everything. How much do you actually need tonight to keep your family in that apartment?" I can't." David seemed unable to process the question. "Why would you—" "Answer the question." David's voice was small. $8,000. 6 months back rent at $1,200 a month, plus late fees, plus the deposit they're keeping. The landlord said if I bring $8,000 in cash tonight, he'll call off the eviction." 8,000. Michael's mind calculated automatically. That left $42,000 for his mother's treatment. It would be enough, barely, but enough. He'd have to cut other things, maybe reduce the home care hours, but it would be enough. And if you don't get evicted, then what? You're still unemployed. Rent is due again in 30 days. "I have a job starting Monday," David said quickly. "Software company. Pays $60,000 a year. It's not amazing, but it's something. I can make the next month's rent. I just needed to get past tonight." A software job. Michael used to hire people for software jobs. He used to be the guy on the other side of the interview table, deciding who got a chance and who didn't. That felt like a lifetime ago. "Show me," Michael said. "Show me what?" "The eviction notice, the job offer, your ID, your wife, everything. Show me proof that you're who you say you are, and this is what you say it is." David's hands fumbled with his phone, then his wallet. He held up a Washington State ID, David Joshua Park, DOB 0315-1999, 25 years old, younger than Michael had thought.
Then a printed email. Congratulations, we're pleased to offer you the position of junior developer at Cascade Solutions, starting November 20th, annual salary $62,000. 3 days from now. The eviction notice? David pulled a folded paper from his jacket pocket, worn soft from being opened and refolded. Michael took it, read it. Riverside Apartments, Building C, Unit 247. Final notice. All the legal language that meant a family was about to lose everything. And your wife. She's waiting at the apartment. Can we please just go? I'll show you everything there. I'll give you my social security number, my bank account info, everything. You can have the police waiting, whatever you want. Just please, let me get there before the landlord leaves. Michael looked at the clock on his dashboard. 10:17 p.m. They'd been sitting here for 12 minutes. David had said he needed to be there within the hour from when they'd started the trip. That gave them maybe 30 minutes. Call your wife, Michael said, unlocking the doors and starting the car. Tell her we're on the way. Wait, you're taking me? I'm not deciding anything yet, but I'm taking you to Riverside so I can see if you're lying or if this is real. And if you try to run when we get there, I will hunt you down and make sure you never work in software or anywhere else in this city. Understand? I understand. Thank you. God, thank you. Don't thank me yet. David's hands shook as he called his wife. Michael listened to one side of the conversation. I'm almost there. Yes, I got it. No, it's complicated. Just trust me. I love you too. And felt something heavy settle in his chest. The drive to Riverside took 10 minutes through rain that had graduated from heavy to torrential. Michael's windshield wipers could barely keep up. His phone buzzed twice more, both times Wells Fargo. Both times he ignored it. What was he doing? This was insane. He should be at the police station right now, filing a report, starting whatever process existed to get his money back. Instead, he was driving a thief to see the thief's sob story checked out. Riverside Apartments was a 3-building complex that probably was nice 20 years ago. Now it had the worn look of a place where people lived because they had no better options. Michael parked in front of Building C. Through the rain, he could see lights on in various units, lives being lived in identical boxes stacked on top of each other. Unit 247, David said, 2nd floor. And, Mr. Chen, whatever happens next, I'm sorry. I know that doesn't fix anything, but I am. They got out of the car. The rain immediately soaked them both. Michael followed David up an external staircase, metal steps slick with water. Unit 247 had a wreath on the door, cheerful and incongruous. Someone had tried to make this place a home. David knocked, 3 short raps. The door opened immediately. The woman who answered was small, dark-haired, very pregnant, and looked like she hadn't slept in days. Her eyes went to David first, relief washing over her face, then to Michael, confusion replacing the relief. David? This is Michael, David said. He's the man whose money I stole. The woman's face went white. She stepped back like she'd been hit. No, David, no. You said you'd figured it out. You said... I lied, Sarah. I'm sorry. I lied. A small voice came from the inside of the apartment. Daddy? Michael looked past Sarah and saw a little girl sitting on the floor surrounded by cardboard boxes. She had her down's eyes and her mother's dark hair, and she was holding the stuffed animal that had seen better days. Daddy's home, the girl said, smiling. Something in Michael's chest twisted so hard it hurt. You must be Mr. Chen. An older man had appeared behind Sarah, 50s, gray hair, the exhausted look of someone who dealt with too many deadbeat tenants. I'm Rick Morrison, building manager. David called an hour ago, said he'd have my money by 10:30. It's 10:28, so I'm assuming you're here with a certified check or cash for $8,000. Michael looked at David, then Sarah, then the little girl on the floor. Can I see the apartment? Rick frowned. Why would... 5 minutes. I want to see what $8,000 is buying. Rick shrugged. Your funeral. The apartment was small, maybe 700 square feet. 1 bedroom, and I guessed, and they turned the living room into a 2nd bedroom for the daughter. Her room was cordoned off with a curtain. The furniture was second-hand but cared for. There were children's drawings on the refrigerator. A bookshelf made from cinder blocks and planks held a collection of worn paperbacks and baby books. In the corner, a crib waited for the baby that was coming in 2 months. It looked like every apartment I'd lived in during my 20s, before Microsoft, before the marriage and the divorce and the mother's diagnosis, when I still thought effort and hope were enough.
Nice place, Michael said.
It's home, Sarah replied quietly. She had one hand on her pregnant belly, the other gripping the door frame like she needed it to stay upright. Was home. Mommy, are we leaving tonight? The little girl asked. She'd followed them in, rabbit in hand. You said maybe we were going on an adventure. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. Maybe, honey. We'll see. I like adventures, the girl smiled. She didn't understand. 3 years old. How could she understand? Michael walked to the window, looked out at the parking lot and his car below. Rain streamed down the glass. Somewhere in Seattle, his mother was sleeping in her hospital bed, dreaming of a future that was slipping away. Somewhere, in his phone, was a fraud department, waiting to hear whether he wanted to press charges, whether he wanted to send David to jail, whether he wanted justice or mercy. But standing in this apartment, looking at this family that was 1 hour from homelessness, Michael realized something. He was already ruined. His mother was going to die. Maybe not in 3 months, maybe not in 4, but soon. The treatment would buy time, nothing more. He'd known that all along, but had refused to admit it. He'd built a shrine out of his savings account, made it holy, made it mean something beyond what it actually was, a number on a screen that was supposed to represent hope. David had stolen his hope. But looking at Sarah's terrified face and the little girl's innocent smile, Michael had to ask himself, whose hope mattered more? Mr. Chen? Rick checked his watch. It's 10:30. I've got other properties to check on. Do we have a deal or not? Michael turned from the window. I need to make a call. He stepped into the hallway, pulled out his phone, dialed Wells Fargo Fraud Department. It rang 3 times before someone picked up. Wells Fargo Fraud Prevention, this is Brandon. Mr. Chen, we've been trying to reach you. Have you filed a police report yet? No, and I'm not going to. Silence. Sir, I don't understand. You reported the theft of... I made a mistake. The transaction was authorized. I transferred the money to a friend who needed it. False alarm. Mr. Chen, our records clearly show. Are you telling me I don't know what I did with my own money? No, sir, but then unfreeze my account. Remove the fraud flags. The transfer was legitimate. I'm going to need you to confirm that in writing, and we'll need... Fine, whatever paperwork you need, I'll do it. Just unfreeze the account. Michael ended the call. His hands were steady. That surprised him. He'd just made a decision that would change everything, and his hands were steady. He walked back into the apartment. 5 faces turned to him. Rick, David, Sarah, the little girl, and a 6th face in his mind's eye. His mother, who would never know that his son had chosen someone else's family over her extra months. I need a pen and paper, Michael said.
David stared at Michael like he'd started speaking in tongues. What? Pen and paper. You're a software developer. You must have a computer here. We're going to write a contract. I don't understand what's happening, Rick said. He looked between Michael and David like they were both crazy. Do you have my money or not? Michael pulled out his phone, opened his banking app. His account was still frozen, but he could see the balance. I have the money, but we're going to do this properly. Nobody is handing anyone $8,000 in cash tonight. That was the deal, Rick said flatly. Cash, tonight. Those were David's words. The deal is changing. Michael met Rick's eyes. I will wire you $8,000 first thing tomorrow morning when the bank's open. In exchange, you will provide David and his family a signed agreement that they can stay in this apartment for the next 30 days while they get back on their feet. At the end of 30 days, David will pay you the $1,200 for the next month's rent and will consider the back rent settled. Rick's laugh was ugly. Why the hell would I do that? I've got other tenants ready to move in who actually pay on time.
Because if you don't, I will report that you demanded cash payment for back rent, which means you're not reporting this income to the IRS. I will also call a lawyer friend of mine who specializes in tenant law and have him review every single one of your lease agreements to find violations. And I will personally make sure that every negative review about this property ends up on every rental site on the internet. Michael had no lawyer friend. He had no idea if Rick was evading taxes, but he'd been a middle manager at a major corporation, and he knew how to bluff with authority. Rick's face had gone red. You're threatening me? I'm negotiating. $8,000 tomorrow morning, 30 days for David to get settled. That's the deal. And what do I tell my other prospective tenants? That the unit isn't available yet. You're a landlord in Seattle. You'll fill it eventually. Rick looked at David. You're associated with some interesting people, Park. David's voice was small. I didn't ask him to do this. No, he didn't, but I'm doing it anyway. Do we have a deal, Rick? The silence stretched. Michael could hear the rain outside, the hum of the refrigerator, Sarah's quick breathing. The little girl had started playing with her rabbit again, oblivious to the adult's tension. Fine, Rick finally said, but I want that wired transfer by 9 a.m., and if it's not there, if you're screwing with me, I will have the sheriff here at 9:01 to physically remove them. You'll have it. Rick pulled out his phone, typed something. I'm emailing you the account and routing numbers. Check your phone. Michael's phone buzzed. The email was there. Got it. Then we're done here. Rick headed toward the door, stopped. David, you are the luckiest unlucky bastard I've ever met. Don't waste this. The door closed. The apartment fell silent, except for the rain and the little girl singing softly to her rabbit. Sarah spoke first. What just happened? I don't know, David said. He was looking at Michael like he was something alien, incomprehensible. Why are you doing this? Michael sat down on their second-hand couch. Exhaustion was catching up with him, bone deep and heavy. Can I ask you something? Both of you. What's your daughter's name? Emma. Her name is Emma, Sarah says softly. Emma. And the baby, do you know? A boy. Sarah's hand went to her belly. We're going to name him Daniel. Emma and Daniel. Okay. I'm doing this because I don't know what else to do. My mother's dying. The money you stole was supposed to buy her a treatment that might give her 3 more months. Might. No guarantees. Meanwhile, you've got 2 kids who need a home tonight, not 3 months from now. And I'm sitting here trying to do the math on whose life is worth more, and I can't. I just can't. Your mother, Sarah sat down beside Michael, we can't take that from her. We can't. You already did. David already did, and the thing is, I could call the police right now. David would probably go to jail. You'd definitely get evicted. Emma and Daniel would end up in a shelter or worse, and my mother would still die, just with slightly better pain management for a few extra weeks. I laughed, but it came out wrong. Congratulations. You forced me into the worst trolley problem ever. I'll pay you back, David said desperately. Every dollar. I start work Monday. I'll give you my entire paycheck. With what? You've got rent to pay, a new baby coming, a family to feed. You think you're going to have $50,000 lying around? No, just stop. He pulled out his phone again, opened a notes app. Here's what's going to happen instead. We're writing a contract, a real one. David, you're going to give me your social security number, your employer information, everything. I'm going to become your worst nightmare, a creditor who actually knows where you work. Michael started typing as he talked. You will pay me $300 a month for the next 30 years. That's barely above minimum payment on a $50,000 loan, which means you're going to pay me back about twice what you stole once interest is factored in. Miss a single payment, and I file charges for the original theft. Are we clear? David nodded mutely. Say it out loud. We're clear. I'll sign whatever you want. I'll do whatever you want. Good, because I'm about to make you uncomfortable. Michael kept typing. You're also going to send me a photo of Emma and Daniel once a month. Nothing fancy, just a proof that your kids are okay. Because here's the thing, David. I'm not giving up $50,000 for you. I'm giving it up for them. For a 3-year-old girl who thinks she's going on an adventure and a baby who hasn't even been born yet. You're just the guy who gets to benefit from me being too tired to do the right thing. Sarah made a sound that might have been a sob. This isn't real. This can't be real. It's real. And it's going to cost me everything. My mother's treatment, my savings, my self-respect. But the worst part? I think I'm okay with it. Because in the morning, I'm going to wake up and still be me. A guy driving strangers around at 2 a.m., visiting my dying mother, counting pennies. But Emma gets to wake up in her home. Daniel gets to be born in a stable place. And maybe that's enough.
It's not fair to you, Sarah whispered. Nothing about any of this is fair. Fair would be you having a job, David not getting laid off, my mother not having cancer. Fair doesn't exist. We just have choices. Michael finished typing, read over the document. This contract says David will pay me $300 a month starting December 15th. It includes his employer information, social security number, and an acknowledgement of the debt. It also includes a clause that if he misses any payment, I have the right to report the initial theft to the authorities with this document as evidence. I'll sign it, David said immediately. Wait, Michael held up a hand. Before you sign, I need to tell you something. This contract? It's not legal. Not really. Any decent lawyer would tear it apart in about 5 minutes. You can't retroactively authorize a theft just by signing a payment plan. If you wanted to, you could walk away from this right now and I'd have no recourse. David and Sarah exchanged glances. Then why are we doing this? David asked. Because I need to believe you are a good person who made a terrible choice, not a criminal who got lucky. I need to believe that when you look at Emma and Daniel, you'll remember what this cost someone else's family. And I need something, anything, that makes this feel less like I'm just letting you get away with ruining my life. Michael held out his phone. So, sign it. Not because it's legally binding, but because it's morally binding. Because 30 years from now, when you're 55 years old and you've made your last payment, you'll remember the man who let you keep your family. David took the phone. His hand was shaking as he typed his name. Sarah signed next, her signature a shaky scrawl. Michael signed last, made the document into a PDF, emailed it to all 3 of them. Done, he said. You've got 30 days before the first payment. I suggest you use them wisely. Emma appeared beside Michael, her rabbit dragging on the floor. Are you my daddy's friend? Michael looked at this child whose home he'd just saved, whose father had stolen his mother's last chance. I guess I am. Do you want to hold Mr. Hops? Emma held up the rabbit. Emma, don't bother Mr. Chen, Sarah said quickly. It's okay. Michael took the stuffed rabbit, examined it seriously. One eye was missing, one ear was sewn back on with mismatched thread. Mr. Hops has been through some adventures, huh? Daddy fixed his ear, Emma said proudly. It fell off, but Daddy fixed it. Your daddy's good at fixing things, Michael said. He handed the rabbit back. Take care of Mr. Hops, Emma. I will. Emma hugged the rabbit and skipped back to her corner. Michael stood up. Every bone in his body hurt. I should go. I need to be up early to send that wire transfer to Rick. Mr. Chen, David's voice cracked. I don't know how to... Don't. Whatever you're about to say, don't. I'm not a hero. I'm just tired and sad and out of options. In 6 months, you'll have settled into your job and forgotten about me. In a year, these payments will just be another bill you pay. And that's fine. That's how it should be. But right now, tonight, I need you to understand something. Michael walked to the door, his hand on the handle. My mother's name is Helen Chen. She was a teacher for 30 years. She taught 2nd grade. She has boxes of cards from students who loved her, photos of kids she helped learn to read. She volunteers at a food bank when she's feeling well enough. She calls me every Sunday just to hear my voice. And in 3 months, maybe 4, she's going to die with less pain medication than she could have had because you took my phone off a table in a coffee shop. Sarah was crying openly now. David looked like he might be sick. I'm not telling you this to make you feel guilty. I'm telling you this because I need one person in this world to remember her name. Helen Chen. Can you remember that? Yes, David whispered. Good. I opened the door. The rain had finally stopped, leaving the world washed clean and cold.
I'll see you in the payment schedule." He walked down the stairs, got into his car, and sat in the silence. His phone showed 11:14 p.m. In less than 2 hours, his entire life had changed. He pulled up his mother's contact, his thumb hovering over the call button. What would he tell her? That her treatment was safe? That he'd saved a family? That he'd made the hardest choice of his life and still didn't know if it was the right one? He put the phone down. Some conversations needed daylight. Michael started the car and pulled out of the parking lot. The app showed 14 ride requests in the downtown area. Friday night was picking up despite the rain. He accepted one, then another, falling back into the rhythm of driving. Pick up, drop off, 5 stars, repeat. But at every red light, he thought about Emma holding Mr. Hops, about Sarah's hand on her pregnant belly, about David's face when he signed that contract, and about his mother, sleeping in her hospital bed, dreaming of a future that Michael had just traded away. The contract was signed. The family was saved. Michael Chen had made his choice. But some choices don't end when you make them. They echo forward and backward and sideways into lives you never meant to touch. And the notification that started everything, it was still there on his phone. A digital scar that reminded him. Sometimes saving one life means accepting that you can't save another.
3 weeks later, Michael stood in the oncology wing of Swedish Medical Center, holding a cup of coffee that had gone cold an hour ago. The morning sun cut to the windows at an angle that hurt his eyes. He'd been awake for 36 hours straight, driving through 2 night shifts back to back because the bills kept coming and the money kept not being enough. His mother sat in the chair by the window, thinner than last week, grayer than last month. Dr. Patterson stood beside her bed, clipboard in hand, wearing the expression that doctors learned in medical school, the one that said, "I have bad news," without saying anything at all. "The tumor has grown," Dr. Patterson said. She had the courtesy to say it plainly, without euphemism. "It's progressed faster than we anticipated. We can continue with palliative care to manage pain, but the experimental treatment isn't an option anymore," Michael finished. He'd known this was coming, had known it since the moment he wired $8,000 to Rick Morrison's account, since the moment he'd let $42,000 slip through his fingers. "I'm sorry, Michael. If we'd started the treatment 3 weeks ago when you first qualified, we might have been able to slow the progression. But now the cancer's too advanced. The treatment wouldn't be effective, and it would just make her remaining time more difficult." His mother reached for his hand. Her skin was paper-thin, spotted with bruises from IV lines and blood draws. "It's okay, sweetheart." "It's not okay." Michael's voice was steady. He'd used up all his tears somewhere around 4 a.m., driving a drunk couple home from a bar while they laughed about nothing. "It's not okay, and it's my fault." Dr. Patterson frowned. "Michael, you did everything you could." "I had the money. 3 weeks ago, I had exactly enough money, and I gave it away." The words came out flat, factual. "I made a choice, and this is the consequence." His mother squeezed his hand. "What are you talking about?" So Michael told her. Everything. The notification, the stolen money, David and Sarah and Emma, and the baby who would be named Daniel. The contract that wasn't really a contract. The $8,000 that bought a family 30 more days in their home at the cost of his mother's 30 more days of life. When he finished, the room was silent except for the beep of a monitor down the hall, someone else's crisis playing out in a different room. "You gave away my treatment money," his mother said slowly, "to save a family you didn't know." "Yes." "A family whose fathers stole from you." "Yes. And you didn't tell me." "I couldn't. I didn't know how to explain that I chose strangers over you. What son does that?" Her mother was quiet for a long moment. Then she started laughing. Not the bitter laugh Michael expected, but something genuine, surprised. "Oh, sweetheart, you beautiful, stupid boy." Michael stared at her. "What?" "I'm dying anyway, Michael. Did you really think 3 more months would change that? That this treatment was going to save me?" She shook her head. "I've known for weeks that it wasn't going to work. I've been to enough doctor's appointments, read enough statistics. That experimental treatment was hope, not a cure.
but you needed the hope more than I needed the treatment. That's not... Let me finish. His mother's voice had the schoolteacher firmness that still commanded attention, even from a hospital chair. You've been killing yourself for a year, working yourself to death to save someone who's already dying. I watched you give up your life, your future, everything for 3 more months of mine, and I couldn't figure out how to make you stop. She pulled his hand closer, made him sit on the edge of her chair. So you want to know what I think about your choice? I think you saved a 3-year-old girl from homelessness. I think you gave a pregnant woman a safe place to have her baby. I think you showed more compassion in one night than most people show in a lifetime. And I think that's exactly what I taught you to do. But you're dying. I was always dying. We're all dying. The only question is what we do with the time we have. She touched my cheek the way she used to when I was young and afraid. You gave that family time, real time, meaningful time. Time for Emma to grow up in a stable home. Time for Daniel to be born safely. Time for David to become the man he needs to be. That matters more than 3 more months of me forgetting your name because of the pain medication. I don't accept that. You don't have to, but I do. She smiled, and it was the same smile from my childhood, the one that said everything would be okay even when it wasn't. Michael, do you know what my biggest fear has been? Not dying. I made peace with that months ago. My fear was that you'd spend the rest of your life as a ghost, trapped in this loop of work and guilt and obligation, that you'd forget how to live because you were so focused on keeping me alive. I can't just let you go. You're not letting me go. You're letting me be proud of you. There's a difference. That little girl, Emma, you said she showed you her rabbit? Mr. Hops. Yeah. When she's 10 years old and doing well in school, when she's 16 and applying to college, when she's 25 and starting her own family, that's because of you. That's your legacy, not 3 more months of sitting in hospitals. Dr. Patterson cleared her throat. I should give you two some privacy. No, wait. Michael turned to her. The palliative care, how long do we have? Weeks, maybe 2 months if we manage the pain well. And the pain management? What does that cost? Michael, his mother started. What does that cost? He repeated. Dr. Patterson consulted her clipboard. The hospice care program we recommend, with in-home nursing and medication, runs about $2,000 a month. Insurance covers some of it, but I can do $2,000 a month. He was already calculating. The $42,000 he still had, minus the $8,000 to Rick, minus living expenses. He could make it work. Keep her mother comfortable, keep her home instead of a facility, keep her surrounded by her things and her memories.
Michael Chen, you stop that right now, his mother said sharply. You are not spending your entire savings on my pain medication. It's my money. I'll spend it how I want. It's your future, your life. You're 41 years old. You've been divorced for 6 years, and you're driving strangers around at 2 a.m. because you have no other options. When I'm gone, you need that money to rebuild. I don't care about rebuilding. Well, I do. Her voice rose, stronger than it had been in weeks. Do you think I want to die, knowing I've destroyed my son's chance at happiness? That I'd taken everything from you and left you with nothing? You've never taken anything from me. Then don't let me start now. She held his face in both hands, forced him to look at her. Basic hospice care, basic pain management, nothing fancy, nothing expensive. And you take the rest of that money and you do something with your life. Promise me. I can't. Promise me, Michael. As your mother, as someone who's taught for 30 years and knows a thing or two about human potential, promise me you won't waste your life on my death? Michael felt something break inside him, finally and completely. I promise. Good. She let him go, settled back into her chair. Now tell me more about this family, about Emma and Sarah and David. I want to know everything. So Michael told her about Emma's rabbit, about Sarah's determination, about David's terror and shame, about the contract that wasn't really a contract and the hope that wasn't really hope. His mother listened, asked questions, nodded at the right moments. You know what, she said when he finished? I'd like to meet them. What? This family you saved? I'd like to meet them before I can't anymore. She smiled at his expression. "Don't look so shocked. I taught second grade for 30 years. I've seen hundreds of Emmas. I'd like to meet one more." "I don't think that's a good idea." "I think it's a wonderful idea. You've tied your life to theirs for the next 30 years. I'd like to know who my son has chosen to be responsible for." She raised an eyebrow. "Or is there another reason you don't want me to meet them?" Michael thought about David's face when he signed the contract, about Sarah's tears, about Emma's innocent question. "Are you my daddy's friend?" "I don't think they want to see me," he admitted. "I'm a reminder of the worst thing David's ever done. Or you're a reminder of the best thing anyone's ever done for them. There's only one way to find out." Helen Chen pulled out her phone, the ancient flip phone she refused to upgrade, and held it out. "It's basically the same thing, but with fewer consequences." She waggled the phone. "Come on, what's the worst that can happen?" Helen Chen wanted to meet the phone. Michael had saved them once. Now he had to figure out if he could face them again, and whether they could face him. Some debts are measured in money. Others are measured in courage. 2 days later, Michael stood outside a cafe in Green Lake with his mother in a wheelchair beside him. She'd insisted on getting dressed up, lipstick, her good scarf, the earrings his father had given her before he died. She looked fragile and fierce at the same time. "They're here," Michael said, watching David and Sarah approach with Emma between them, holding both their hands. Sarah was pushing a stroller with a newborn inside. "Daniel's here already. How old?" 6 days. Sarah must have given birth right after you saved them." "Good. I want to meet him." Helen waved at the approaching family. "Hello! You must be the Parks." David and Sarah looked terrified. Emma looked curious. The baby slept through everything. "Mrs. Chen," David started, his voice tight, "I don't know what Michael told you, but—" Sit down, sit down." Helen gestured to the table Michael had reserved. "We're not going to do this standing up. Michael, help me out of this chair. I'm not having lunch in a wheelchair like some invalid." Michael helped his mother into a regular chair, parked the wheelchair to the side. The Parks sat down slowly, awkwardly, like they were approaching a trap. Emma stared at Helen with wide eyes. "Are you sick?" "Emma," said Sarah sharply, "it's okay." "Yes, sweetie, I'm very sick. My body is getting ready to stop working." "That's sad. When my fish stopped working, we had a funeral." "Emma, please," Michael muttered. "I appreciate the comparison. I hope my funeral is as nice as your fish's." She leaned forward. "Now, which one of you is going to tell me about Mr. Hops?" Emma's face lit up. "You know Mr. Hops?" "Michael told me all about him. He sounds very brave." "He is. He lost his eye in a battle with the vacuum cleaner." Emma launched into a detailed explanation of Mr. Hops's various adventures, while the adults sat in stunned silence. A waiter appeared, took orders. Helen ordered half the menu. I won't finish any of it, but it's fun to order, and insisted on paying. "My treat. It's not every day I get to have lunch with the family my son adopted." "Mrs. Chen," Sarah said quietly, "we can't accept this. Any of this. It's not right." "What's not right is that my son thinks he made a terrible choice. So I'm going to tell you something, and I need you to listen." Michael gave away my treatment money that was supposed to buy me 3 more months of life, and I've never been more proud of him. David's hands clenched on the table. He shouldn't have had to choose. No one should have to choose, but we live in a world where sometimes we do. And the only thing that matters is what we choose. She looked at Emma, who was now showing Mr. Hops to the waiter. "Michael chose that little girl's future over my past. That's exactly what a good person does. We're going to pay him back. Every dollar. I've already made the first payment." "Already?" "The contract said December 15th.
I couldn't wait. I made it as soon as I got my first paycheck. David pulled out his phone, showed a transaction, $300 to Michael Chen. And I'm going to keep making them for 30 years if that's what it takes. Good. But here's what I want you to understand. You're not paying back debt, you're paying forward opportunity. Helen gestured to Emma and the stroller. My son gave you the chance to raise your children in stability. What I want to know is, what are you going to do with it? Sarah spoke for the first time since sitting down. I'm going back to school, nursing degree. I was halfway through when Emma was born and I had to drop out. David's job has benefits that cover childcare. I can finish. And I'm volunteering, David added quietly, at a food bank. Tuesday nights. It's not much, but it's something. A food bank? Helen's eyes filled with tears. My food bank? The one on Roosevelt? Yes. How did you... I've been volunteering there for 15 years. Helen looked at Michael. Did you tell him? No, I didn't know he was volunteering anywhere. David looked between them. You volunteered there? I did, until I got too sick. Helen was crying now, openly. You're taking my place. The table fell silent. Emma was the one who broke it. Why are you sad? Daddy says volunteering is happy. It is happy, sweetheart. I'm just very, very happy. Helen wiped her eyes. Michael, did you know about this? I knew about the payment. I didn't know about the volunteering or Sarah going back to school. David, why didn't you tell me? Because it's not enough. It'll never be enough. You gave us everything. How do we repay that? You don't, Helen said firmly. You live well. You raise good children. You help other people when you can. That's the repayment. She reached across the table, took both David's and Sarah's hands. I'm going to die in a few weeks, but before I do, I need you to know something. My son didn't choose you over me. He chose hope over fear. He chose the future over the past, and that's exactly what I raised him to do. Mrs. Chen, Sarah was crying too now. Let me finish. I don't have much time left, and I want to use it well. Helen squeezed their hands. When I'm gone, Michael is going to need family. He's going to need people who remember this choice he made, people who help him believe it was the right one. Can you do that? Can you be that for him? Yes, David said immediately. Absolutely yes. Good. Then I can die happy. Helen let go of their hands, turned to Emma. Now, Miss Emma, tell me more about this vacuum cleaner battle. Was Mr. Hobbs very brave? Emma launched into the story again, and this time the adults listened with smiles instead of tension. The food arrived. Helen picked at her meal. David and Sarah ate quietly, and Michael watched his mother charm a 3-year-old with the same skills she'd used on thousands of second graders. The baby woke up, fussing. Sarah lifted him from the stroller, and Helen's face transformed. May I? She asked. Sarah hesitated only a moment before placing Daniel in Helen's arms. The baby was tiny, red-faced, perfect. Helen held him like she remembered exactly how, like the 20 years since Michael was this small hadn't happened. Hello, Daniel. You're going to have a good life. Your parents are going to make sure of it. And Michael, she looked up at her son, Michael is going to be part of that life, not just someone you pay money to, someone who matters. He already does, Sarah said. We talk about him every day. Emma prays for him at bedtime. Do not. Do too. God bless Mommy and Daddy and Mr. Hobbs and Mr. Michael who saved us. Emma looked embarrassed. It's a good prayer. Michael felt something in his chest crack open. It's a very good prayer. Helen handed Daniel back to Sarah, suddenly exhausted. Michael could see it in the way her shoulders sagged, the way her breathing had gotten shallow. We should go, he said quietly. Not yet. Helen pulled out her phone, handed it to a passing waiter. One photo first, all of us. Mrs. Chen, you don't have to. I want to. I want proof that this happened, that my son's choice mattered. She arranged them all at the table, herself in the middle, Michael on one side, the Parks on the other, Emma holding Mr. Hobbs up for the camera, and Daniel sleeping in Sarah's arms. The waiter counted down. 3, 2, 1. The photo captured Helen's smile, Michael's awkward expression, David and Sarah's wet eyes, Emma's gap-toothed grin, and Daniel's peaceful sleeping face. It captured a family that shouldn't exist, built on theft and forgiveness and impossible choices. Perfect, Helen said when the waiter showed her. Email that to everyone.
Helen Chen died on a Tuesday morning in January, exactly 6 weeks after the lunch at Green Lake. She died at home, in her own bed, with Michael holding her hand and a nurse checking her morphine drip. Her last words were, "Don't forget to pay the electric bill." Even dying, she was practical. The funeral was small. Michael had expected maybe 20 people, a few former colleagues, some neighbors, the ladies from her book club. Instead, 73 people showed up. Former students, now adults with children of their own, volunteers from the food bank, teachers she'd mentored, people Michael had never met, but who had been touched by his mother's kindness. And in the front row, wearing his only suit, sat David Park with his family. Michael hadn't invited them, hadn't even thought to, but there they were. Sarah holding 6-week-old Daniel, Emma in a dress she kept tugging at, and David looking like he'd rather be anywhere else, but refusing to leave. The service was short. Michael had prepared a eulogy, but couldn't get through it. He stood at the podium, looked at all these people his mother had taught or helped or simply been kind to, and realized he didn't have words for what she'd meant. My mother taught second grade for 30 years. She used to say that 7-year-olds were her favorite age because they still believed in magic, but were old enough to understand consequences. She taught reading and math and science, but mostly she taught kids that they mattered, that someone was paying attention, that their stories were worth hearing. His voice cracked. He looked at David and Sarah in the front row. She taught me that same lesson, my whole life, that people matter, that their stories matter, that sometimes the right choice is the hard one, and the hard one is the only one you can live with. He couldn't continue. He stepped down from the podium, let the minister take over with the standard prayers and platitudes. But after the service, as people filed out to the reception, David approached him. "That was a good eulogy," David said quietly. "I didn't finish it. You said everything that mattered." David pulled an envelope from his jacket. "This is for you." Michael opened it. Inside was a check for $300, the February payment, a week early, and a letter. The handwriting was careful and deliberate. "Mr. Chen, your mother asked me to write this if anything happened to her. She said you'd need to hear it from someone other than her. She died happy. I know that sounds wrong or impossible, but it's true. She spent her last 6 weeks talking about that lunch, about Emma and Daniel, about the choice you made. She said it was the most Michael thing you'd ever done, stupid and brilliant at the same time. She made me promise 3 things. 1, that I'd keep making the payments, even though you'll probably try to tell me to stop. 2, that I'd bring my kids to visit you sometimes, so you remember why you made that choice. And 3, that I'd tell you she forgave you for everything you think you did wrong. I don't know what you think you did wrong, but she was very specific about that part. Also, she paid for Daniel's first year of childcare. She said it was a gift from one teacher to another, since Sarah's going into nursing. The receipt is at the bottom of this envelope. Thank you for giving us our lives back. We're going to make it count. David Park." Michael looked up from the letter. "She paid for your childcare? $6,000? She did it 3 days before she died." David's eyes were red. "We tried to refuse, but apparently she'd already signed the contract with the daycare. It's done." "Of course she did," Michael laughed, but it came out broken. "She couldn't let me be the only one making dramatic financial gestures. She loved you a lot." "I know." Michael folded the letter, put it back in the envelope. "You don't have to bring the kids to visit. I don't expect—" "We want to," Sarah said, appearing beside David. She had Daniel in a carrier against her chest. "Emma's been asking about you. She wants to show you that Mr. Hops has a new eye." "She sewed it on herself," David added. "Well, with a lot of help, but she's very proud." Emma tugged on David's hand. "Mr. Michael, do you want to see?" So there, in the parking lot of the funeral home where Michael had just buried his mother, a 3-year-old girl showed him a stuffed rabbit with a mismatched button eye and explained in great detail how she'd been very brave with the needle. "It's perfect," Michael said. "Mommy helped with the hard parts, but I did most of it." Emma hugged the rabbit. "Your mommy is in heaven now, right?" "That's what people say." "Is she happy there?" Michael looked at this child whose life he'd saved, whose father he'd forgiven, whose family had become inexplicably tangled with his own. "Yeah, I think she's pretty happy." "Good. I said an extra prayer for her last night." Emma tugged David's hand. "Can we go get ice cream now? You said after the funeral." "Emma, that's not appropriate." "It's fine," Michael said. "She's 3. Ice cream is always appropriate when you're 3. The Parks laughed, Emma chattering about ice cream flavors, Sarah adjusting Daniel's carrier, and David looking back once with an expression Michael couldn't quite read. The parking lot emptied. The funeral home staff started cleaning up. Michael stood alone by his car, holding an envelope with a check and a letter and a receipt for childcare. His phone buzzed. The banking app notification he'd been dreading. Wells Fargo savings, balance, $4,205.67. $4,000. That's what was left after the hospice care, the funeral expenses, the bills he'd been putting off. $4,000 from the $50,000 he'd saved over 8 years. Another notification. Payment received. $300 from David Park. $300 toward a $50,000 debt that didn't exist, that Michael had never expected to see again. But it was there. Real money. Proof that David was keeping his promise. Michael sat in his car and opened his rideshare app. 17 ride requests in the downtown area. Thursday afternoon, people needing to get places, living their lives. He accepted one, a short trip from Capitol Hill to the University District, and started driving. The passenger was a college student, early 20s, stressed about an exam. Michael drove and listened to her talk about organic chemistry and professor expectations and how she was the first person in her family to go to college. At the destination, she thanked him and rated him 5 stars.
Michael accepted another ride, then another. As the sun set over Seattle, he fell back into the rhythm that had defined his life for 3 years. Pick up, drop off, listen to strangers' stories, be invisible and essential at the same time. But something had changed. Every passenger now reminded him of David, young and scared and trying their best. Every story about money problems or family stress or impossible choices echoed his own. He'd always thought driving was about being invisible. Now he wondered if it was about being witness, about seeing people at their most vulnerable and choosing to help them get where they needed to go. At 11 p.m., Michael's phone rang. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer, but something made him pick up. "Is this Michael Chen?" A woman's voice, unfamiliar. "Yes?" "My name is Patricia Morrison. My son Rick manages Riverside Apartments. He told me what you did for the Park family." Michael's stomach dropped. "I'm not sure what you mean." "Don't play dumb. You saved them from eviction." "Rick was impressed enough to mention it to me. I'm calling because I run a nonprofit that helps families avoid homelessness. We provide emergency rent assistance, job counseling, childcare support, and we need someone who understands what it's like to make impossible choices." "I'm not qualified for nonprofit work." "You're exactly qualified. You've been living in the cracks of the system for years. You know what it looks like from the inside." Patricia paused. "The position is program director, $45,000 a year plus benefits. It's not much, but it's stable, and you'd be helping families like the Parks every day instead of just once." "Why me?" "Because Rick said you did something he's never seen in 20 years of property management. You made everyone involved believe in second chances, families like the Parks, landlords like him, even yourself apparently." Patricia's voice softened. "Also, one of my board members is a woman named Helen Chen. Was, I should say. She passed away recently.
But before she did, she called me and said I needed to hire her son, that he'd spent long enough paying for other people's mistakes and it was time for someone to invest in him. Michael pulled over to the side of the road. My mother did what? She was very persuasive. Sent you resume, references from your Microsoft days, the whole package. She said you'd say no at first because you'd think you weren't qualified, but that I should tell you, Patricia checked her notes, that second graders believe in magic and you should too. Michael closed his eyes. Even dead, his mother was rearranging his life. The position starts March 1st. That gives you time to transition out of whatever you're doing now. And before you say no, I should mention that the Parks have agreed to be on our family advisory board. You'd be working with them, helping other families avoid what they went through. I need to think about it. Take your time, but not too much time. I need an answer by next week. Patricia gave her email address and hung up. Michael sat in his parked car watching the city lights reflect off wet pavement. $45,000 a year. Benefits. Stable hours. A chance to do for others what he'd done for the Parks, except legally, systematically, without having to empty his life savings. His mother knew he'd need this, had planned for it even while dying, because that's what Helen Chen did. She taught people to believe in second chances, even when they couldn't see them coming. His phone buzzed. Another notification, but this time not from the bank. It was a photo from Sarah. Emma and Daniel, both wearing pajamas, both holding up a sign that said, "Thank you, Mr. Michael," in crayon. Below the photo, Emma insisted on making this before bed. She says Mr. Hops helped. The first year of our new life is ending, and it's all because of you, Sarah. Michael looked at the photo for a long time. Emma's gap-toothed smile, Daniel's tiny fist gripping the sign. Evidence that his choice had mattered, that his mother's death hadn't been meaningless, that the impossible decision he'd made in a gas station parking lot had rippled forward into something good. He opened his email and typed a message to Patricia Morrison. I accept the position. Thank you for believing in second chances. When do I start? Then he put his phone away, turned off the rideshare app, and drove home. Not to pick up passengers, not to chase surge pricing, not to fill the empty hours with strangers' voices. Just home. To sleep. To start over. To believe, maybe, that second graders were right about magic. They say every ending is a beginning, but sometimes beginnings look like losses until you're far enough away to see the pattern. Michael Chen had lost his mother, his savings, his old life. But as one year ended and another began, he was learning that some losses plant seeds, and some seeds take time to grow.
November 17th came around again, exactly 1 year after the notification that changed everything. Michael stood in the community center that housed Second Chances, the nonprofit Patricia Morrison ran, where he'd been program director for 8 months now. The walls were covered with photos of families they'd helped. Rent paid, evictions avoided, stability restored. 43 families in 8 months. Not enough to fix the housing crisis, but enough to matter. In one photo, David Park stood with a group of volunteers at the food bank, exactly where Helen Chen used to stand. In another, Sarah held her nursing school diploma, Daniel on her hip, Emma beaming beside her. Michael's desk was covered with case files, new families facing the same crisis David and Sarah had faced. The Martinez family. 3 kids, mother working 2 jobs, still 3 months behind on rent. The Johnson family. Medical emergency wiped out their savings, eviction notice posted last week. The Chen family, no relation, different spelling, father lost his job, mother too sick to work, running out of options. Every file was a choice. Every family was an impossible equation with no right answer. But now Michael had resources beyond his own bank account. He had emergency funds, legal aid partnerships, job placement programs. He had a system instead of just sympathy. His phone buzzed. Not a bank notification this time, but a text from David. Payment sent. Also, Sarah graduates next week. You're invited, Emma insists. Michael smiled. 13 payments so far, $300 each. $3,900 toward a $50,000 debt. At this rate, David would be making payments until he was 55 years old, long after Michael had forgotten the exact amount, long after it stopped mattering. Except it would always matter.
That's what Michael had learned this year. Some debts aren't about money. They're about connection, about remembering that your life is tangled up with people you never meant to meet. Another text, this time from his ex-wife, Jennifer. Heard about your mom. I'm sorry I missed the funeral. Also heard you're doing good work at Second Chances. Proud of you. Michael stared at that text for a long time. Jennifer had left him 3 years ago, exhausted by his inability to see beyond his mother's illness, tired of being married to someone who'd given up on his own future. He'd been angry at the time, betrayed. But sitting in this office, looking at these families who needed help, he understood. You couldn't save anyone else until you learned to save yourself. He typed back, "Thanks, how are you?" "Good. Remarried. Happy. You should try it sometime." "Maybe I will." A knock on his office door. Patricia Morrison poked her head in. "Got a minute? There's a family here asking for you specifically. They heard about what you did for the parks." "I didn't do anything illegal," Michael said automatically. It was a joke they had now, Patricia teasing him about the questionable legality of his initial intervention with David. "No, but you did something memorable. They trust you. Room 3. Michael gathered his files and headed to the consultation room. Inside, he found a young couple, mid-20s, exhausted, holding a baby who couldn't have been more than 3 months old. The man had his arm around the woman's shoulders, protective and desperate. "Mr. Chen," said the woman, "my name is Lisa Bradford. This is my husband, Tom. We're about to lose our apartment. We heard you helped the parks. David said you were," she struggled for words, "that you understood." Michael sat down across from them. "Tell me your story." So they did. Tom had been laid off 6 months ago. Lisa had complications after the birth and couldn't return to work. Savings depleted, family unwilling to help. Eviction notice posted yesterday. The same story Michael had heard from David, from the Martinez family, from dozens of others. The details changed, but the shape stayed the same. Good people, bad timing, the system with no safety net. "How much do you need?" Michael asked. $7,000, Tom said. 6 months back rent, plus fees. We have jobs lined up, both of us, starting in 2 weeks. We just need to get past right now. Michael opened his laptop, pulled up the Emergency Assistance Fund. Second Chances had $50,000 available this quarter, money from grants and donations, money specifically earmarked for cases exactly like this. A year ago, Michael would have to sacrifice his own future to help them. Now he could do it with a form and a signature. "I can get you the $7,000, Michael said, "but there are conditions. You'll need to meet with our financial counselor weekly for 3 months. You'll need to provide proof of employment, and you'll need to pay into a savings program, $50 a month for the next year. Can you do that?" Lisa burst into tears. Tom just stared. "That's it? You're just helping us?" "That's what we do here. We help people get past right now so they can get to later." Michael had said these words so many times in the past 8 months that they'd become reflexive, but they still felt true every time. He spent the next hour walking the Bradfords through paperwork, explaining the program, setting up their counseling schedule. When they left, Lisa hugged him, a fierce, grateful embrace that made him uncomfortable and necessary at the same time. "You saved our lives," she whispered. "I just helped you save yourselves," Michael corrected. But he knew that distinction didn't matter to them. It had never mattered to David and Sarah either. The afternoon passed in a blur of meetings and phone calls and case reviews. At 5 p.m., Michael's alarm went off, the one that reminded him he had somewhere to be. He grabbed his jacket and headed out. Sarah's graduation was at the University of Washington in an auditorium filled with nursing students and their families. Michael arrived late, slipped into his seat in the back. He spotted David and Emma near the front, Emma bouncing in her seat, David holding a sleeping Daniel. When Sarah's name was called, "Sarah Park, Bachelor of Science in Nursing, cum laude," Emma screamed so loud that half the auditorium turned around. David was crying openly. Sarah crossed the stage, accepted her diploma, and found her family in the crowd. Her smile could have lit the entire city. After the ceremony, Michael tried to slip out unnoticed, but Emma spotted him. "Mr. Michael!" She ran toward him, diploma ceremony manners forgotten. "Did you see Mommy? She did it!" "I saw. She was amazing." Sarah and David caught up to Emma. She was still wearing her cap and gown, still glowing with accomplishment. "You came. Emma insisted, apparently. We all insisted, David adjusted Daniel in his arms. You're part of this. You should be here. They took photos, Sarah with her diploma, the whole family together, and one that Emma demanded. All of them, including Michael with Mr. Hops in the center. The rabbit now had both eyes, mismatched buttons, both ears, different fabrics, and what appeared to be a cape made from a sock. Mr. Hops is a superhero now like you. I'm not a superhero. You saved us. That's what superheroes do. Emma said it with the absolute conviction of a 4-year-old who decided something was true.
After the photos, after the congratulations, the Parks invited Michael to dinner. He almost said no, the same instinct that had kept him invisible for 3 years of driving, the same urge to maintain distance. That then Daniel woke up and smiled at him, and Sarah said please, and David looked at him with an expression that said, "You're family now, whether you like it or not." And Michael heard himself say yes. They went to a Vietnamese restaurant in the International District, crowded and loud and perfect. Emma ordered spring rolls and made a mess. Daniel slept there most of it. Sarah and David talked about her job prospects. 3 hospitals had already made offers. David talked about work, about the promotion he'd just received, about the apartment they'd been approved for in a better neighborhood. "We're moving next month," Sarah said. 2 bedrooms, safer area, closer to my new job at Swedish. We can actually afford it now. Swedish Medical Center, where Helen Chen had died 9 months ago, where Michael had watched his mother slip away while choosing not to regret the choice that made it harder. "That's great," Michael said, and meant it. "We want you to come see it," David added, "once we're settled. Emma wants to show you her new room." "It's going to be purple," Emma announced. "Purple with stars." Sounds perfect. The check came. David reached for it immediately, but Michael was faster. "My treat, graduation present." "Michael, you don't have to." "I want to." And he did. Not because he owed them, not because of guilt or obligation, but because he wanted to celebrate with people who mattered to him. When had that happened? When had the Parks stopped being the family he'd saved and started being just family? Walking back to his car after dinner, Michael's phone buzzed. Another banking notification, but this time he looked at it without dread. Wells Fargo savings, balance, $18,450.32. $18,000. He'd been rebuilding slowly. The nonprofit salary wasn't much, but it was steady. Some months he added $500 to savings. Some months only $50. But it was growing again. Not fast enough to feel like security, but fast enough to feel like hope. Another notification. Payment received, $300 from David Park. The 14th payment, $4,200 total. Michael opened his banking app and did something he'd been thinking about for months. He started a new account, Emma and Daniel's college fund. He transferred $3,000 into it, everything David had paid him minus the first month, which he'd kept as a reminder. Then he sent David an email. "David, I've moved 13 of your 14 payments into a college fund for Emma and Daniel. The money is yours to access if you need it for emergencies, but otherwise it stays untouched until they're 18. Keep making the payments if it makes you feel better, but know that this debt was never really about money. It was about believing that people can be better than their worst moment. You've proven that. Every month for the past year, you've proven it. I don't need you to keep proving it for the next 29 years. But I do need you to keep bringing the kids around. Emma's parrot bedtime, the photos Sarah sends, Daniel's smile, that's the real payment. That's what makes the choice worth it. Congratulations to Sarah. Tell her a former project manager is very impressed by anyone who can survive nursing school. MS. Michael." He sent the email before he could overthink it. Then he drove home, not to the studio apartment he'd lived in during the driving years, but to a small 1-bedroom he'd moved into last month. It had a window that faced east, catching morning light. It had a kitchen where he sometimes cooked. It had a bookshelf with Helen's books, the ones he'd kept from her apartment. It felt like a home instead of just a place to sleep between shifts. Michael made tea, sat by the window, and watched the city lights flicker on as darkness fell. November 17th. 1 year since the notification that changed everything. 1 year since he made a choice that still didn't feel entirely right, but didn't feel entirely wrong either. His phone buzzed. David's response was immediate. "I'm going to keep making the payments, all 30 years, because you're right, this was never really about money. It was about me learning that I could be someone my kids are proud of, someone who keeps his promises even when it's hard. But thank you for the college fund. Thank you for everything. Also, Emma says Mr. Hops wants to have a sleepover at your place sometime. I tried to explain that's weird, but she's very insistent. Michael laughed out loud, alone in his apartment. A stuffed rabbit sleepover. That's what his life had become. He typed back, "Tell Mr. Hops we'll schedule something." Then he opened his laptop and reviewed tomorrow's case files. The Martinez family needed a decision by Friday. The Johnsons had a court date next week. 3 new applications had come in today. Every file was a story. Every story was a choice. Every choice was a chance to do what his mother had taught him, believe that people matter, that their stories matter, that sometimes the right choice is the hard one. His phone buzzed one more time. A notification, but not from the bank. Memory from 1 year ago. Photo with Helen Chen. It was the picture from the Green Lake Cafe. His mother in the center, smiling, surrounded by the family he'd saved and the life he'd chosen. She looked happy. She looked proud. She looked like someone who knew exactly what she was teaching her son, even in her last weeks. Michael set the photo as his phone's wallpaper. Then he went back to work, reviewing cases, making choices, helping families get past right now so they could get to later. The work was hard. The decisions were impossible. But for the first time in years, Michael Chen felt like he was exactly where he was supposed to be.
Up next, 2 more incredible stories are waiting for you right on your screen. If you enjoyed this one, you won't want to miss these. Just click to watch and don't forget to subscribe.